Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We want to welcome you back to Mobile App Academy, where we show you how to build and configure mobile apps live on the Now platform. My name is Charlie Steiner, product marketer here at ServiceNow, and today we'll be showing you how to create top-level categories for your browsing experiences on Now Mobile. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Mobile App Academy is a live building series that focuses on managing and building out mobile apps in real time. Our product experts are here to provide guidances, best practices, and answer any of your questions in the Q&A window. We do host these sessions every 2 weeks here on Zoom at 10 a.m. Pacific, and our recordings are posted to YouTube Thursday mornings Pacific time. And if you are watching on YouTube, do check the description to register for the next one. Before we get started today, I just want to point out a few resources that we do have available on our very active mobile community. If you're new to mobile, we recommend you check out some of our self-enablement resources, such as the guidebooks, white papers, and other articles that we do have, as you can see in the bottom right here. We also have a plethora of other resources like labs and mobile training on Now Learning, including our playlist of all our previous App Academies. So do be subscribed to that on YouTube as well, down here. And you can find everything and more that I'm referring to on our community page. And this is what our menu bar looks like at the top panel. So do feel free to check that out after the stream. And one more thing to note, if you like these sessions, our partner teams at ServiceNow also host academies for virtual agent, HR, and performance analytics. And you can find those academy sessions in their respective community forums. And that'll be at the top menu bar under the forums tab. So with all that said, I'd love to introduce our special guest today, who's a senior technical product manager with the mobile team at ServiceNow, is Karan Shah. Karan, love for you to dive right in.
Hey, thanks a lot, Charlie, for introducing. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Karan Shah. I'm a senior technical product manager at ServiceNow, working on the Now platform, Now mobile platform. So today we will dive into the top level categories for browsing experience and specifically for knowledge base and knowledge articles. So just would love to.
We can see your screen. Perfect.
All right. So, the idea or, by default, out-of-box experience for Now mobile enables users to access knowledge base and view knowledge articles. But as of today, what is happening is we see a lot of ask and from our customers that they want to categorize their knowledge base based on the different departments that they have. And this could be IT, HR, or any other department they've set it up. The current behavior of mobile app today is they get a list of all the knowledge categories, and they're not able to categorize that based on the department. The second ask that we have from customers is also to customize the knowledge category table for any customizations that they want to do. This would include adding new columns or showing a specific information on the applet as well. So what we'll do today is we'll take a deep dive into kind of an exercise where we will implement a knowledge browsing experience by enabling the top level knowledge base where you can categorize your knowledge articles. So, if you take a look at the images on the left, you'd see the current experience out of box where the browse will give you a list of all the knowledge categories, which is application, devices, email. But for the user, it's difficult to kind of know if the knowledge is actually an IT knowledge, it comes from an IT knowledge base, or it comes from knowledge HR knowledge base. So the goal today is to categorize knowledge into different knowledge bases, which would kind of allow users to see HR knowledge, IT knowledge, and any other knowledge base that they have set up. That's the first use case that we'll do today. The second use case is around customization. And for folks who've kind of looked into the applet and the data item that we use, the entire app knowledge category is based on a remote table, which is read only. So if you see on the left side, the left image is essentially what the table is. It's a read only table. And one of the biggest asks from our customers is that they want to customize that. In today's exercise, what I'll do is I'll add an image field on the remote table as well. And this is just a one-off example of what we are doing. You can add any other field that you want. You can change the layout as well. So on the right side, if you see the image, I've added I've added a image icon as well for all the knowledge categories as well. That's a custom field in the remote table. So without getting into further discussion, I'll kind of like to jump into the exercise where I'll kind of deep dive into how do we set up knowledge base and knowledge articles. Before I jump into the session on how to configure the applets, what I would like to show is the current state of the out of box feature. So what we have today is the information applet launcher, within which we have the browse categories. So if you see, it's not categorized by knowledge base, and it doesn't have any custom field in it. You can definitely click on it and go further into the different categories that are there, but it's difficult for the user to figure out if it's an IT knowledge base or an HR knowledge base. So what we'll do is we'll configure this. It will first tackle the first use case of having an applet that shows the top level knowledge base. So to do that, first thing we'll do is go into our instance and open up Mobile Studio. In the Mobile Studio, you can go into the scope that you're creating. You want your applet to be in. For this exercise, I'm going to just go with the knowledge management scope that we have. I'll go into data items and I'll create a new data item. I'll call it knowledge base. I'll select the table called knowledge, KB knowledge base, and I'll save this. Just to give you an idea of what the KB knowledge base looks like, it has all your KB knowledge bases, which is IT, HR, knowledge, any other knowledge base that you might have. So we've created a data item. The next step is to create a new applet that would allow us to list the different knowledge base that we have. And before we do that, we'll also need a item view JSON for how the applet would look. So what we'll do is we'll go into the item view and create a new item view JSON. So we'll go into sys.sg item view, and we'll say create new. We'll give this the name knowledge base item view. And we'll select the table, which is table knowledge base. And in the item view JSON, we will paste a predefined template that we already have. What this would do is it would essentially kind of just show the the knowledge base label. So let me go ahead and save this. So which is the title essentially, right? So now the next step, once we created the template view for the applet, we'll actually go ahead and create the applet. So we'll go back into the studio. We'll go into applets. Click on create new applet. And we'll select list view. We'll uncheck the form view because we just need the list, and eventually we'll have a navigation function that would kind of navigate to the right knowledge categories. So we'll call this KB base, and we'll click on create new. In the data item field, what we'll do is we'll select the data item that we created before, which is this one, and we'll save this for now. So far, what we've done is created the list applet for our knowledge base. We definitely need to go and change the master view item for this particular applet. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our platform and go into the sys master item. So sys sg master item dot list. And what we'll do is we'll kind of find the master item that we created for knowledge base. So if we just search for base, we'll have uh, KB base main item. We'll uncheck view config. Instead, we'll use the item view that we created before. So if it's knowledge base item view. All right. So we have the knowledge base over here. So the next step is that we've already created the applet for knowledge base. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and uh, add this to our applet launcher. Before we do that, we do need to modify the knowledge category that's already existing, so that when we click on the knowledge base, it should allow us to navigate to the knowledge categories. So what we'll do is we'll go into the platform and we'll search for applets, and we'll search for browse, because the name of the applet over here is browse. And we'll have a few of those records that show up. What we need to do is we need to find the browse which has description called knowledge category list. So we'll go into this record. What we need to do is we need to go into the UI parameters and modify the UI parameter. So let's open the UI parameter. In the UI parameter, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and change the input source from user input to autofill, and the user input type to a source field. This will open up the parent table and the source to select. So in the parent table, we'll kind of find our remote table, which is v underbar st kb category. And the source field would need to be selected as the sys ID. And we'll go ahead and save this. The next step is to kind of create a link between the knowledge base and the category. And we do that by creating a new navigation function. So in the platform, we'll type functions, and we'll go ahead and create a new function. So we'll KB base to category. We'll select the type of the function to be navigation, and the table will select as the remote table, which is v underbar st underbar kb underbar category. And when the action is completed, the screen that we want the user to navigate is the browse screen that we edited. So we'll go ahead and select the browse screen. Just want to make one thing that, one thing that we would like to kind of just confirm, that this is the same browse applet that we modified, which is the knowledge category list. So we can, kind of verify that by just making sure that the UI parameter that we selected is from the remote table as well. So that's good. And we're going to go ahead and save this record. So the next step is to kind of attach this function to the new applet that we created. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll go into the master item again. And we'll search for our knowledge base that we created earlier. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a new function instance. for item configuration. We'll give this knowledge base to category. Over here, we'll find the function that we created earlier, the navigation function. We'll give this as a label, and in the location, we'll select list type, so that when you click on it, it will navigate to the right category. All right. So the next step is, at this point, we are done with kind of configuring our knowledge base applet and adding a navigation function so that it would help us navigate to the right knowledge articles. So what we need to do is we need to go into the navigation bar and add it to our applet launcher. For right now, I am going to add it as a item section. And my destination is going to be, screen is going to be the knowledge base that I created earlier. I'm going to call it, the orientation is going to be vertical, and I'm going to save this. I'm just going to give it a item. Yeah, all right, perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. Quickly, I'll go back to my mobile screen and refresh to see the changes that have taken place. So we can see that we've successfully added knowledge base. So you can see all the different bases that you have, HR, IT, and knowledge. And when you click on it, it will kind of help take you to the different article categories, sorry, knowledge categories within that knowledge base. So for HR, you have applications and suppliers. For IT, you have device, email, IT, and operating systems. So this is the first use case that, as a customer, what we wanted to do was categorize our knowledge categories into different knowledge base, essentially, enable our users to select or view different knowledge base and then browse into different knowledge categories. I'm going to take a quick pause over here so that this entire configuration can just sink in before I kind of jump into the next use case. And if there's any question, I'll be happy to answer that as well at this point for the first use case.
Hey, Karan, this is Fu. This is a great presentation, by the way. Just want to go back a little bit. So remember when you first created the item view JSON?
Yeah.
And you pasted something there.
Right.
Like what is did you write that by hand or did you copy it from somewhere? And what's the best practice on adding that JSON there? Like how did you get around that? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I essentially copied this from the same, the browse applet. All I had to do was change let me find the variable over here, which is the cell ID to title. So I know this can get a little confusing. What I would like to point out is that, creating JSON view is done much better in the studio. But also in Quebec, ServiceNow has introduced something called as a mobile card builder, which you can use to create your templates, screen templates as well, which is much user friendly. But there are some cases where if you do not have the mobile card builder plugin, you would need to fall back to the item view JSON. The best practice for this is actually to kind of configure this via the mobile studio. Hold on, did I just? Yeah. So yeah, sorry. So the best practice is to actually configure this via the mobile platform, mobile studio platform, where you have the option of either customizing this in a mobile card builder if you have the plugin, or to customize it in the platform as well. We can definitely share some documentations around this. But for this exercise, what I've done is I've copied it from the browse applet that we already had. So you can do the same. There are a lot of examples, for item view JSON, which you can pretty much use. And, it's more of a trial and error to kind of get the right structure that you want for the template.
Perfect. Thanks for explaining that.
And I think that answers the question that we got from Dirk in the chat as well, asking about which database view that we're using and if it's available out of the box. So yeah, we just used the out of the box applet from Browse. And we just copied the JSON, and then he just changed the cell ID to title, and that's how we got it. We have another question from Faisal. Is the control access at knowledge base through user criteria still honored? So this is honored only if the CSM team included in their queries when they built the out of the box experience. So I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but if you can post that on the mobile community site, I can definitely forward it over to that team that worked on that. Any other questions from the chat? Doesn't look like we have any so far. Fu, do you have any other questions before we move on?
No.
All right. So now kind of coming to the second use case where the user wants to customize the browse categories or the knowledge categories. One thing I would like to point out over here before we get into configuring the browse categories to add customization or custom columns is that this configuration is not provided out of the box. This is a heavy configuration, a custom configuration that the customer has to do. So before even kind of jumping into getting your customization, it's always a good idea to kind of take a step back and to discuss if this is an approach that you want to go ahead with. Because in this configuration, what we'll do is we'll create our own remote table and we'll write some scripts to populate that. And I'll tell you why we need to do that. But it's just a heads up that this is a heavy customization that we're going to do, right? So kind of now jumping into that, the reason I say that is because the browse applet or the browse knowledge categories actually are based on the VSTKB category table. And this table is a remote table. And this is driven by a script. It's a read-only table. You cannot change anything in this table. It doesn't persist in the database. It's a real-time driven database or table. And if you type remote, what you'll find is you'll have all the remote tables that are out there. And if you go into definitions, you'll see VSTKB category table over here. Let's go into that. So you cannot change anything in this table. This comes out of the box, and it's a fully scripted table, which means that the values or the records that get generated in that table are essentially coming from this script, which is why to add any customization on the browse category table, we would need to create our own remote table, and we would need to create our own script. So that's just a heads up that you should know. So let's kind of jump into doing that. So first thing what I would like to point out is that we'll take a look at this specific table right now and just look at all the columns that are there in this table. So we have something called as has child, label, order, parent, and society. And this table comes from the KB category table. The values are actually derived from this table. So the first step that we'll do is actually create our own remote table. So we'll go into remote tables and say, let's create a new remote table. You can give it a new label. Call this. All right, let me actually change the scope real quick. I like to create. You can create this in any scope, but for this exercise, I'm going to create this in the global scope just to keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and submit this. I marked it as a remote table. So let's go back into this table and let's start adding those columns. So the first thing that you want to do is kind of make sure that you add all the columns that are there in this specific table. And it's not necessary, but for just the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to replicate the same table and I'm going to add one more extra column into this. But based on your use case, you can modify the columns. You can remove certain columns. You can add new columns. But one thing to kind of be sure of is that any columns that you add or remove, your entire applet should be designed in so that it behaves in the certain way that you want. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create all the new tables columns that I need, which is as child. Add label. There's a column called parent. Just going back on order. So far I've replicated the same columns. What I'll do is in my exercise, I want to add an image to the browse category so that the behavior or the experience is same for the browse catalog services where there's an image, but in browse knowledge applet, we do not have an image. So the experience that I want for my users is that I want an image for the knowledge category as well. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create an image field as well. And I'll start giving it the type string. So parent, it's a reference to knowledge category. Right. So we're going to select knowledge category. Order is a string and image is of type image. All right, just want to make sure that we selected the right table. Yep, KB article. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I was able to create the remote table. So let's go into the newly created remote table. And let's see what it looks like. So right now you can see that it's totally invalid. It doesn't have anything in it. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a scripted definition for that remote. So we'll go into remote. We'll go into definitions. What we will do is we will essentially copy the same script that we have for the KB article. So what we'll do is for now, we'll just copy the same script from the original or the out-of-box VSTKB category table, and we'll paste it in here. We will select the new table that we created, which was U_bar category remote test, and just call it KB remote test. All right, and let's go ahead and save this. All right, so we have created the definition, but it will still not work. And the reason for that is because some of the column names over here are wrong. So to give you an example, if you go back into the same table, although we were able to populate the table, you can see that the values are all empty. And the reason for that is some of the column names in here are still referring to the old column name from the out-of-box table. So we need to update that based on the new column name that we have. So if we go into this table, we need to change some of the column names. So it has basically for parent, it's U_bar parent. So we need to change all of these. And one thing I would like to kind of just mention, this is an out-of-box script. For your use case, you need to modify the script based on the column that you're adding or the information that you want to display in the category or remote table. All right. So basically I've changed all the labels to U underbar label, U underbar order, U has child, U underbar parent, in all the locations that I feel it's relevant. So U underbar label, U underbar, and I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and I'm gonna go and refresh. I'm gonna go and see the table. Now you can see that we were successfully able to create and populate the newly created remote table with all the right information. The image is still missing because for images we need to go into the actual category table and add an image so that it could look up for the image from the actual table. This table did not have an image field before. I added a new image field so that I could read from this table as well. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and select some images for the out of box. I have devices over here. So devices should have an image. Suppliers. Operating systems will have an image. Let's add image to IT as well. All right. So far we were able to successfully, add, populate the newly created remote table with all the information. So we'll add an image to email as well. I think that's was missing. All right. Okay. So we're not done yet. This is just the first step of creating our remote table. The next thing that we need to do is essentially replace the old remote table with the new remote table that we created. And this means that we need to change all references of the V underbar ST KB table, KB category table with the new remote table that you created. So let me close some of these. And let's go back into our instance. All right. So the first place that we will need to replace this is essentially in the knowledge base applet. So let's go into applets. And let's search for knowledge base. We'll go into knowledge base. We'll go into the item stream segment. We'll go into the item stream M2M segments, go into the knowledge base main item. So this is the first place that we need to start configuring for the newly created remote table. So we'll go into the function instance. From here, we'll go into the actual function. And then we'll go into the newly created, the old browse services, browse catalog, so that we can change the applet over here. So in the UI parameter, we need to replace this table. Let me quickly change the scope as well so that. All right. So in this, I'll select the new table that I had created, which was U underbar STKB remote test, and I'll select sysid as the source field. That's the first place where you need to change. So just testing, my applet as well. So far, everything's working. The next place that we need to go ahead and change is the actual browse applet, so that we can add the image as well. So I'm going to go back into this one. I'm going to go into the item stream. I'm going to go into item M2M streams. this is the second place where we need to change our table. There are a lot of references, a lot of places where this references need to change. So the first, essentially, this area is where when we click on the knowledge base, it still goes into this applet, but it's still looking up from the old remote table. So we'll open this data item. And we need to change the table over here as well. And just make sure that you kind of also keep track of the query condition as well, so that we do not lose them. So we'll select the new table. We'll select parent. So is parent. Yeah. And we'll order this by label, and we'll save this. Just going to refresh my mobile screen to make sure that it's. So you can see that the first applet stopped working because it's now no more pointing to the out-of-box remote table. But if you go into your knowledge base, you would still see that it's kind of missing. So we'll kind of see what else we need to change as well. So let's. Our own item view. And what I'll do is I'll just pretty much copy, hold on, not copy, but I'll select the table that I need. I'm going to give it a new name, which is and for the item view JSON, you can copy the same item view, but we need to add the image as well over here. So what I've done is I already have a JSON with me, which is handy. It's pretty much the same, but what I've done is just added a new field over here, which is basically the image field. And you can get this from your browse catalog services. You can use pretty much the same JSON that you use here and just replace it with the table that you just created. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So once this is saved, what I'll do is I'll go back into my item configuration for browse categories, and I'll change the item view with the newly created item view JSON. And I'm going to refresh my mobile screen applet. And you can see that ignore the applet above because we need to get rid of it. But if you go into HR or if you go into IT knowledge base, you can see that what we've done is successfully added the image, and we were able to also kind of have the new remote table reflect as well. Right. So now what happens is you can see that some of the navigation functions are not working. When you click on application, it doesn't go into the further categories that are there. And for the reason for that is we still need to change the reference for the old remote table into the with the new one. And what we'll do is we'll essentially go into we are in the same item configuration, and if you go down into the function instance, we need to add the same function instance to the applet and change the remote table as well over there. So we'll go ahead. Let's close this. So we'll go ahead into the knowledge category. This is the app function instance that's responsible to kind of go into the child level categories. You can see this is a navigation, and it goes into a destination screen called browse. We'll go in here. We'll go into the item stream, go in over here. And you can see that the data item still reflects. We changed this one. Let's go and right. Let's see. Yeah. So one of the things is in the navigation, in the function instance, we go into the knowledge category, and the navigation needs to kind of be updated with the new table that we created, which is v_st_kb category. We'll open this and we'll go ahead and yeah, this is the table needs to change over here as well. Oh, it's working actually. My bad. Yeah. So sorry. I think I might have. It's working as expected. So if you actually click on the browse applets, you can drill down into the different applets that you have. You would see that there's a space before the label. That's because we've not added the image for all the categories that we have. But you eventually, the idea is that based on what the use case is, you can add your categories. But that's pretty much it in terms of what configuration needs to be done to kind of get this both the use cases solved. Yeah. I'll take a pause over here. If anyone has any questions.
I think this is a really great walkthrough, Karan. I think this is helping a lot of our customers figure out how to configure the stuff on the back end. Fu, I think you had a couple questions.
Yeah. Well, this is really great, Karan. I think this is probably one of the most custom solution that we've done. So you've touched on a lot of good points. One thing is the remote tables, right?
Right.
And the first thing you did was you took a copy of it and you kind of referenced the original because to avoid the permission issue. Right. What are some of the cons of doing that? So correct me if I'm wrong. So I think one of the cons is that if the original parent table changes for some reason, that means the remote table that you've made a copy will also have to change, or it'll just break. Is that a fair statement?
Right. That is true, because the out-of-box table, if anything changes in that, you wouldn't get the new release or new features that the team would ship. Which is why it's kind of important to kind of make that decision that if you're creating a new custom remote table, you need to maintain it going
Correct.
forward. And that will result in any new changes that come in the out of box table will not be reflected in the new table.
Awesome. And one more thing is, I think Anne had the same question as me, is that you made a modification on the function instance. Instead of making a copy of it. Now, since you edit the original out of the box functions instance, when you upgrade to a new family release, does that out of the box function instance get reset?
Because you made customization to the the out of box, it will not get reset. But what is recommended is that you actually create copies of your of the out of box function instance as well. In this exercise, I might have used the same function instance. I kind of apologize for that, but the idea is to create your own copy so that any changes in the out of box records or functions will get updated when you upgrade as well.
Perfect. Thanks for confirming that.
And I think we had one last question a little earlier. We had a question actually two questions. One anonymous, can you use the user criteria table on applets and applet launchers to restrict access? If you're trying to restrict access to users, you can actually apply role-based access inside of Mobile Studio, and that can apply to your applets, applet launchers, and functions. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Fu.
No, I think that's preferred way of enforcing role-based stuff.
Yep. And then one question from OU earlier. You scroll up. Are HR, IT, and knowledge KBs or categories in one KB? I'm not sure what that question is asking, but OU, I can definitely unmute you to help clarify. So I'm gonna click on allow to talk. And then OU, if you want to unmute your mic, feel free to ask us that question.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, at the bottom right there, KB base, and then there's HR, IT, and was it knowledge?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the HR, IT, are those like categories, or are those individual knowledge bases?
Those are individual knowledge bases, right? As you can see. And if you go into knowledge categories, each category falls into a knowledge base. So news falls into IT, application falls into HR, and so forth. That's how it's categorized.
I see. So they're individual knowledge base. And so basically the objective here is to expose individual knowledge bases, which is out of the box, not available, right? So what you did?
And they don't know which knowledge falls, which knowledge category falls into knowledge base. They don't know if it's coming from HR or IT. So what they want to do is categorize that based on IT and HR. So if you go into HR, you have all the HR articles or HR categories. If you go into IT, you have all the IT categories.
I see.
Right. So I think Karan's enabling, so there's some organizations where, HR teams and IT teams work together. And so they don't define parent level categories. They don't have a specific knowledge for HR and one for IT. But there's other organizations who do break down, between HR and IT. And so this is kind of, we're enabling that use case. If your users expect to see KB specifically in HR, you can create that parent level category with this workaround. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then I think we got one comment from Jacob. He mentioned sometimes it's better to modify the out-of-the-box records because it shows up in the upgrade, and it will be an indicator if something breaks outside of testing. Creating copies of everything you want to modify can obfuscate the things that you may need to update during an upgrade. Just this couple cents. So definitely a great pointer. And I think there's no other questions at this point. Karan, I think this was a really great demonstration, or walkthrough. And we will have this video recording up in the next couple of days. We did go through this configuration a bit quick, but we recommend checking this out if this is something that's relevant. And we'll go ahead and wrap up for today since there's no other questions coming in.